afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the international webinar on what is the impact of women on corporate board, organized by Eurasiaweb in association with IRAJ webinars. On the behalf of entire organizing committee, I'm Isaac Behra, organizing secretary. Would like to welcome you all for this webinar. Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce our organization. The motto behind this non-association to bridge the gap between students, professors, academics, and industrialists from multidiscipline. Apart from organizing various seminars, expert talks, and conferences, we have various highly rated multidisciplinary journals, the field of science, engineering, technology, and management. Since our inception, we have been arranged various international conferences at various parts of the world, and more than 1 lakh people across the globe are associates with us, and more than 5 lakh researchers have been presented and published during our journey. Today, I'm glad to welcome you all as a member of this fastest growing network for the advancement of science and technology in terms of research and innovation. Today, we are very much fortunate to have an eminent professor and expert who is joining this webinar as an expert speaker and guest. His name is Professor Dr. Michel Sahut. Presently, he's working as a professor of finance and IT at IDRAC Business School of France. Now, I'd like to welcome our professor to deliver the webinar.
Okay, thank you very much for your introduction.
Thank you, sir.
So, okay, I am a professor at IDRAC Business School. It's a business school in France with several campuses in Paris, Lyon, and in other cities. Previously, I was professor at Geneva School of Business Administration. I was also associate dean for research at Eurasiaweb and ESC La Rochelle. And in fact, I started my career at Institut Mines Telecom. It's an engineering school, very famous in France. During my career, I got a lot of grants, share and research fund from the European Commission, for example, from the Autorité des marchés financiers in Quebec with some colleagues. Especially we work on bank credit risk and governance. I also manage a chair from HP, and I get several grants from Fondation Louis Le Prince Ringuet. You can see my profile also on ResearchGate. Now I have more than 100 scientific publications. I wrote also 5 books. I am the chief editor of Gestion 2000. It's a Scopus journal from December 2020, so from last December. And you can also, I encourage you to submit your paper to this journal, and you can find it the website and on the internet. And also, I'm invited editor of Small Business Economy, Technological Forecasting and Social Change. And I am the co-chair of the conference. I will just show you the conference. This conference is a conference on digital innovation. Wait a minute. This one. You see it? Or not?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So this conference will be organized in Lyon in December 2022, this December, and is organized with different organization and different university, Concordia University, Jilin University in China, and INSECU in France. Okay, we have also several special issue, and you can submit your abstract until November 15. Okay. Okay, so now let's move to the presentation. So the purpose of my speak today is about the impact of women on a corporate board, on corporate social performance. This topic, this topic is well documented in the literature, but we have to define some words. The first is, what is a corporate social performance? And in fact, it refers to a business organizational configuration of principle of social responsibility, processes of social responsiveness and policy, program and observable outcome as they relate to the company's social relationship. In fact, it exists in the literature a lot of paper about the relationship between corporate social performance and performance, financial performance. But one of the problems is, what are the antecedents or the determinant of corporate social performance? And one of the determinants can be the presence of women on corporate board, because in the literature, it's one solution considered to enhance corporate social performance. And in fact, it can be one of the determinants, one of the antecedents of corporate social performance. Of course, it exists other determinants, because the size of the company can influence, in fact, corporate social performance, because if you take the example of big companies such as Nestle, for example, they have a huge corporate social policy, and in fact, it's also a very important topic for the business. So, in fact, it exists different antecedents, and also one of the antecedents that we can take into account is, in fact, the corporate governance. And one element of corporate governance is the presence of women on corporate board. So finally, in fact, if you take the economic approach, corporate governance put particular emphasis on maximizing firm financial performance. And in fact, corporate governance can be seen as the design of institutions that induce or force management to analyze the welfare of stakeholders. It's the reason why academic and researchers are interested in the relationship between corporate governance and corporate social performance. So it exists an abundant literature, in fact, on this relationship, and in particular, in the last decade, we can see a lot of paper about how women on corporate board influence performance of organization. But it exists, in fact, very few studies about the relationship between women on corporate board and non-financial performance, and in particular, if you are interested in corporate social performance. Though this, therefore, constitutes an under-researched area. And when we see the results in the literature between a woman on corporate board and corporate social performance relationship, we can see that we have some mixed results. Some study explain that the relationship is positive. It's, for example, the study of Dong and Hall, Brian and Post, and so on. For other study, the relationship is negative, or the relationship can be null. So, if you have some mixed results, it's perhaps the relationship between corporate, women on corporate board and corporate social performance is non-linear. Okay, it's the main objective of our study is to better understand this relationship, and in order to explain, in fact, the non-linear relationship. Okay. So, in order to study this relationship, we use a semi-parametric specification, and In fact, we choose this methodology because this methodology is perceived as being more flexible, okay, and we can take into account special effects of this relationship. And in particular, this approach does not impose any a priori specified parametric for regarding the relationship under investigation, which enable non-linearity in the data to be more effective captured. So finally, this semi-parametric approach provides a relatively complete overview of the woman on corporate board and corporate social performance relationship. And for this one, we'll use, in fact, following the approach of twin and all, we'll use generalized additive models. Okay, it's a form of semi-parametric regression model. Okay, so in this paper, in this presentation, I will present first the theoretical framework and the hypothesis developed. After, I will outline the research design. After, I will present the results and concluding remark. And after, we'll finish with some questions. So what we can say about the theoretical framework about this relationship? We can, in fact, use different theory to explain this relationship. The first one is the token theory, and we refer to Cantor for this theory. And this theory defines tokens as being members of a social group who are significantly underrepresented in a work environment. And in fact, female directors are seen as tokens, as they are insignificantly representing among the directors. Even if this one change in some country, for example, in France now, we have around 45% of female directors in board under the pressure of the law, because now the law requires a percentage of 50%. So Cantor highlights three perceptual phenomena. The first is visibility. The second is scrutiny and pressure. And the third is social isolation. So consequently, a woman on corporate board as token may be listened to or taken seriously, thereby hindering their contribution to and performance within the board of directors. We can use also another theory in order to explain this relationship, is a critical mass theory. In fact, in order to have an influence on a decision, women need to form a critical mass, because a critical mass of women is necessary to significantly influence the company culture and policy, and to make a change, not as token, but as an influential body. And in fact, according to Conrad and all, when there is only one female director, she will experience the bias and limit associated with the token stage. Having three female directors will normalize the situation, as there is a shift from gender to talent, thereby reducing outgroup bias toward women. And with at least three female directors, they feel more comfortable in expressing their point of view or concern, less eager to prove themselves, and more confident in their ability. This one means that you need a minimal number of women, a critical mass, in order to influence, in fact, the decision of the board. So, according to this theory, we can say that the effect of a woman on corporate board on corporate social performance is non-linear, okay? Because at the beginning, perhaps you expect no effects until you reach this critical mass, women. So in order to make our empirical analysis, we have to explain our research design. For the sample, in fact, we took all company listed on the 2018 Fortune 1000 list over the period 2004 to 2018. And specifically, we focus on company ranking for 501 to 1000. In fact, in order to enrich existing study, okay, because also one of the explanation of the mixed results that you can see of the literature not provide just only from the methodology, because they are studied just linear relationship, but also it can provide from data. Okay, so finally, our final sample consisted of a numberless panel data of 453 firms, and we have more than 3,000 firm-year observation. So this table, you can see the definition of the variable. For example, for the corporate social performance, we took the IRAJ score from Thomson Reuters. For the women on corporate board, we took the number of women on corporate board divided by total number of directors. Okay, because if you have a board with 10 directors and just one woman, is not the same that if you have a board of 5 directors with one woman. For the size, in fact, we took the natural logarithm of total assets. This one is a common measure in financial study. For the leverage, we took the long-term debt divided by total assets. It's a relative measure of the debt of the firm. We also took the research and development expenses, and we divided by total sales. We took also MIS, which is a dummy variable equal to 1 if research and development expenses are unavailable on the Thomson Reuters databases. We took after some measure of performance, and especially the return on asset is the net income divided by total asset. We took also a Q, in fact, is a Tobin Q, is a market value of equity plus the book value of debt divided by the book value of total assets. We took also a measure of the board independence. It's the number of outside, it means non-executive director divided by total number of director. And also we took a control variable, which is the firm age, is a natural logarithm of the number of years since the firm's creation. Okay, because the governance practice depend on the firm age. Okay, so in fact, when you see the methodology used by other studies, they use a classical parametric approach. Okay, so it's very classical. So you have the corporate social performance, and you have the different factor, the different variable. Okay. So in our proposal, in fact, we use a semi-parametric approach. Okay. So finally, it's a little bit different. Okay, because here, woman on corporate board is an almost smooth function of woman on corporate board. Okay, this one. Okay, multiply the variable that we have here. Okay, and we use also fixed effect control for unobserved firm heterogeneity. Okay. So in fact, this fixed effect that that are used in a classical parametric approach here, I change, in fact, by this equation. Okay, and in fact, this study has already been used in different papers. And for example, for Dong, this is my co-author, and he developed this one in another paper in a 2021 paper about it. And also we use in this approach the general additive model, okay, in order to capture the nonlinear effects. Okay. So finally, I will not discuss a lot the technical issue, but just in order to explain that this approach, in fact, is developed, in fact, in a package. But in fact, the interest, in fact, is to have some spline in our regression. Okay, so now if we look the results, okay, here we can develop, okay, we can have the result of the less model, the classical results, and this one is with our model. Okay, so you can see here that most of our variables are significant, okay, with our model. But also what we can see, in fact, what is very important is the smooth functions that we develop it. Because in fact, when you see the impact of woman on corporate board, we have this estimated function. What does it mean? It means that, in fact, the first part, you can see that the influence is positive, okay? But the problem is here, when you reach this peak, okay, you can say, okay, perhaps the influence it's a little bit negative, okay? But the problem is that the estimated interval, okay? Because here, okay, the interval is small, but here it's very large, okay? So finally, this one will explain that why you have mixed result in the literature, because if you are in this first part, okay, you can see the impact is positive, but what we can say after, okay, because if the interval is so large, on the statistical point of view, it means nothing, finally. This one is the main problem of this sort of study, okay? Because when you see here, you don't have so many observations, okay? Because here you have 40% of women in corporate bond. The percentage of women in a corporate board is 40%. But if you take this one, for example, 60%, okay, you don't have so many data, okay? So if you are one data is here, one data is here, okay, the average is this curve, but the statistical significance is nothing. Okay, so also we use the estimate derivative to understand what's happened when we increase, in fact, the number of women in corporate bond. And this one help us to define the main result of our study. So finally, below a threshold of around 40% of women on corporate bond, we find that the corporate social performance is 0. Okay. And in the present case, this represents more than 47% of companies in the sample. So finally, if you are below a threshold, it means nothing. Okay. So the figure 2 exhibits a growing relationship between corporate social performance and women on corporate board, up to a threshold of 30% for women on corporate board. And this growing relationship is also estimated fairly accuracy in view of the confidence interval. But beyond the 30 threshold for women on corporate board, the estimated relationship curve begins to be slightly digressive. But we have to note that beyond the 19th percentage, with a woman on corporate board a ratio greater than 30%, care should be taken regarding the interpretation of the curve in this zone. Okay. So finally, we can say that the relationship between women on corporate board and corporate social performance is non-linear. And this one explains, in fact, the mixed results that we have in the literature. And finally, below a threshold of female director of around 40%, the effect of women on corporate bonds, corporate social performance is 0. What does it mean? It means that, in fact, women don't have any impact on decision. And this one is consistent with the token theory, which argues that solo or token women cannot significantly influence decision made by the board of directors and ultimately on financial performance. And this one is because their isolation and scrutiny bias hindering their contribution within the board of directors. The second thing is what's happened when the percentage of women is between 14% and 30%. It means around 2 or 3 female directors in the board. And when we are in this interval, the effect of women on corporate board is positive and constant over this interval. And this finding confirms the prediction of the critical mass theory. And this theory, in fact, means that a mass of women is necessary to significantly influence a company culture, policy, and performance. And finally, when we are beyond the threshold of 30% of women on corporate bonds, the present result shows that the relationship between women on corporate bonds and corporate social performance is still positive, but decreased gradually. And this seems to be a turning point. And finally, the result from a semi-paradigmatic model shows that the relationship between women on corporate bond and corporate social performance is non-linear rather than linear, the latter being commonly assumed in the existing literature. So, thank you for your attention. Do you have any question?
So I think there will be no question.
No question. Okay, so I can add something about this sort of study. So it means that when you make some empirical study, you have to take into account 2 important things when you use financial data. One thing is the heteroscedasticity, and this one is very important for data from financial market, because heteroscedasticity will change the relationship between the variable. This one is one thing. And when you use data, in fact, from corporate social performance or corporate social responsibility, you can see that in the literature, most of the time, the results are mixed. Because, in fact, also it depends on the different environments. For example, if you make the same study in US and in Europe, for example, and especially in France or in Switzerland or in India, you will not get the same results. But also what you have to take into account is just the environment, but in fact, the non-linearity of the relationship between the variable. And this one is very important when you make empirical study, and you have to take into account these elements when you start a research and when you want to publish a paper. Okay.
Thank you, Professor, for sharing your valuable time and for joining this webinar. On the behalf of the organizing committee, Eurasiaweb and IRAJ webinars, I would like to present a certificate of appreciation to you, sir. Kindly accept it.
Okay.
Now I would like to thank all our sponsors and coordinators. I would also like to thank our president. We're happy to hear your comments and compliments or suggestions at our Facebook and Twitter page. This video will be available shortly in our YouTube channel. Kindly subscribe our official YouTube channel, IRAJ conferences and seminars for all past and upcoming webinars and expert lectures. Thank you all and see you on another webinar soon. Thank you, Professor.
Okay, thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye.